I love it every year that I get older. I somehow love it more because there's more to it. So this is Calvin. This is Susie Durkins. Calvin is my favorite example of a gifted kid who does not get identified because he's kind of a pain in the butt. But he's super smart, very creative. Susie is like your hard-working kid. Like, she puts effort in from day one of school to get those A's. And Calvin is shocked to ask, "What are you doing, homework?" And she explains why she's doing her work. She's a hard worker. She didn't understand something, so now she's reviewing her notes. Something that I never did in school. I heard people did this, but I never did this. She's rereading something, and Calvin's surprised. "You did all that work?" And she very logically says, "Now I understand it." And Calvin's response is, "Used to think you were smart." So I think this is true. I know for me, for my friends, there was this feeling that if you are working hard, maybe you're getting good grades, but it doesn't mean you're smart. It means you're a hard worker, and that's like different than being smart. This is not a great habit to get into because, as we all know, once you're on step 3, get a good job, nothing is easy anymore. Everything is really hard, and performance is never perfect. Like, I'm happy to go home and it's like a 60% day sometimes, So things get hard, and it can be. We have this belief, I am smart, but once we have to start working, performance starts to drop. This identity is in crisis. We see it's very common in gifted kids when this happens that they don't just say, "Okay, now I just have to work hard like everybody else." They question if they were ever smart. And I say, maybe everyone was wrong and they didn't look closely at me, or maybe I was identified wrong. And we get this really common pattern where gifted kids start to doubt that they really are gifted. We see this, we get doubts about the accuracy of identification. Was that test that I took 10 years ago, what was that test? Maybe I had a lucky day. And as a parent, you might say, "No, you are smart still. Little Ian, you're still smart." And I would doubt. This is totally exactly my experience. I would say, of course my mom would say that. Or my favorite teachers, like, they don't count, like their opinion doesn't count. So I definitely went through this experience, identified at an early age, and then I start to have to work much later, and I start to doubt, was I gifted? Maybe they were wrong. My mom doesn't know what she's talking about. Of course she likes me. And this leads to something that I went through and only like years later discovered. Like all these things, it's this pattern that happens very commonly with really high-achieving people. We experience something called imposter syndrome. This is just like this student who they really are smart, but they just have to work for the first time, and they begin to doubt, maybe I am an imposter. Maybe I have this label, but I didn't really deserve it. And nobody ever talks about this. Now I've talked about it with like my high school friends, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I had that going on also." And I'm like, "You had that going on? I had that going on." But of course, no one's going to like talk about it. So it's this like hidden thing that nobody talks about, and people who aren't going through it don't realize that it's going on because it's very internal. But I started to doubt, am I really gifted? Am I really smart at all? Or have I carefully tricked everybody? We get kids, students, people who begin to kind of try to hide a little bit. When I was in elementary school, I loved my teachers. Like, I was close to them. And then as I started to feel this, especially in college, I avoided my professors and teachers at all costs. I would take the biggest class possible so that they would not know my name. I would never go to office hours, even though that's what everyone says to do in college. Go to office hours, get to know your professors. I would say, why on earth would I do that? Then they will discover I'm not very smart. Avoiding adults, like not telling my parents what I was feeling. Downplaying success, feeling like I don't want you to praise me anymore because I'm not really deserving of the praise. People might say, "Oh, I got lucky," or that assignment was easy, or this other person did a better job. kind of downplaying success, and starting to choose paths that are easier than they really could do, because they can get 100% at the easy path, and the 100% like feels good. It's like, the good old days. So I told you when I graduated from college, I got a job part-time at my elementary school doing a special education aide. My mom was a special education teacher in this district, and it's a district that I grew up in. It was like the easiest job I've ever gotten in my life. I had a degree in computer science. I was the best part-time special education aide in the whole world. And I was very comfortable with that. Like I could do a good job. I didn't have to do a lot of work at it. And I was successful, but I was way overqualified. So that was so I chose kind of an easy path because it felt good. It felt like the days where I could do things, not have to do a lot of work and get 100%. This is a like common feeling as I've talked to my friends that I grew up with about this stuff. People say stuff like, yeah, I would never ask questions because gifted kids are supposed to know everything. So it would make me look like I wasn't smart. This is one that my friends mentioned, that we all discovered that we were all pretending to understand things so that we would look like we were all smart. And we got like good at pretending to understand things and like looking like we understood them. All because we thought that we have to look good, we have to have this 100%, and everything has to be easy. So I wanted success to be this straight line, I thought, because it was a very straight line in the beginning of my life, that it would always be like that. And once things started to get wiggly, for me and I think for many people, many gifted kids who are used to that straight line, we can really start to doubt what's going on. So I ended up going back to school and getting my credential to become a teacher. Everyone in my family is a teacher, so it's like fate that I had to become a teacher. I was so scared of student teaching. I was like, I have to get out of this program before the student teaching happens. Like, I liked going to school because I could just do my 100% thing, but then the student teaching means I have to get up in front of the class of kids and I have to look really dumb because I'm not good at teaching yet. And in the back is the real teacher, and she's just watching the whole time and jotting down things, and I'm like sweating as I make this kid like falls out of his chair, and this kid's acting up, and I'm like, oh my god, and just jotting notes the whole time. This is like the nightmare situation for someone who wants to be perceived as perfect. This ends up saving my life, the student teaching experience, because this is really the first time I was like 24, 25. This is the first time in my life that I really had a mentor, like an adult who was close enough to see my mistakes. And so then when she would say, hey, you did a really good job with that lesson today, I believed her. And I knew because she had seen me like mess up like 20 lessons in a row. So this was the first time, like school, I had always been so separate from my teachers because I would get good grades, so I could go read a book in the corner, or I could go work on my thing by myself. And I never had to like sit at the table with the teacher and practice things because I never needed to. So I think this is a real danger for our gifted kids, is that they don't get used to sitting with a teacher, making mistakes, and then learning, if I keep working, I can get better at things. Because things come so easily for them. I always contrast myself with my wife, who did not have an easy time in school, but she constantly had these opportunities to work with adults and make mistakes in front of them. As a result, she, as an adult now, has like no problem looking foolish in front of people. Like she'll go up and ask for directions, or she'll go and she'll ask people for things, and I am like, no, don't do it. I'm like, let me stand over here while you go do that, so no one thinks we are connected. She gets all these things happen for her because she's not afraid to go ask for something. She's not afraid to go introduce herself. I still have these lingering fears that I don't want to look dumb. I want to look like I'm in control. So a lot of that comes out of this fact that I never had that relationship with my teachers, who were great teachers and I liked, but I never sat down at the kidney-shaped table and went over my mistakes with them. So student teaching for me, the first time where I really, every day I'd sit down with a master teacher and we'd go over the day and we'd work on the next day, and it was the first time that I got comfortable looking foolish and then learning, hey, I can get better if I look foolish in front of someone. And she doesn't really care if I look foolish because everybody looks foolish when they're starting something. So what do we do? Be aware of effort. Like this is the thing that was missing in my life, was nobody was really aware of the fact that I was putting no effort in, and then suddenly I was putting effort in, because effort can be kind of invisible if you're not really looking for it and not asking questions about it and really being aware of it. The grades and scores, awards, things like that are like, they're like the score at the end of the game, but you know, all kinds of things happen during the game that influence that final score. Like it could be a blowout game, but maybe the star player was injured, or you know, something happened during that game. The final score kind of hides all these things that were interesting about the game. Sometimes things are really easy and the scoreboard doesn't really matter. Like if you do a really good job on this basketball hoop, maybe you aren't deserving of so much praise if you're an adult. But if you're doing it on the full-size basketball court, maybe you're more deserving of praise because it's a bigger challenge for you. So sometimes our students are doing the equivalent of dunking on this, and if they get all these awards for dunking on the like 3-foot hoop, like that doesn't really mean anything. Also, this is Yao. You probably know him. Sometimes our students are Yao. Sometimes they are giants. They are already capable of doing things that other people can't do just by their nature. And sometimes they are this guy, regular sized guy. and things are much harder for this guy. So being aware that sometimes things are easier, sometimes things are harder. Yao should not get any praise for dunking on the kids' hoop. I don't even know if he should get a lot of praise for dunking on the big hoop because he's so tall. So just being aware that some situations there's a mismatch where the score is really good, but the effort doesn't really match up with the score. And sometimes the score is low, but this guy is like playing one-on-one with Yao, and you know he should be praised just for staying alive during the bumping up against him. So sometimes like kids have challenges. Sometimes things are too easy to praise them. We see this just praising them for being smart. The "you're so smart" praise conditions them to just value performance, like just valuing the end result. I was praised a lot for intelligence, and so I valued performance. I valued the 100%. So I would do an easier thing to get the 100%. But kids who are praised for their effort, for their work, they start to value opportunities, because opportunities are what lead to new possibilities. This is definitely like Mrs. Byrd versus Mr. Byrd here. I was praised for my intelligence. My wife really learned about hard work, and she sees things more as opportunities. I'm learning to do that. This is a lot of this is in this book, Mindset. This idea that the way that we praise kids and we talk about effort versus final results, we can shape the way that they view things like setbacks and effort. Really good book, easy read. It's written by a PhD, but it's not too hard to read. Useful for thinking about how do we praise people in a way that helps them value their effort. Asking questions that are related to effort can help students think about effort instead of just performance. We have the classic school question: what did you do today? And the classic school answer is nothing. What did you learn today? Nothing. Right? We have these classic questions, but we can ask questions that are more acknowledging of the fact that effort exists at school, and maybe there is something that is hard at school, but we don't know about it. Like effort is really invisible unless we dig for it. This kind of question, first of all, it makes it okay that you struggled. Like it acknowledges that maybe during the day there was something that was hard. Like what was hard today? What did you struggle with? you can share what you struggle with. Like, you can talk about the fact that we go through struggles. You can talk about the fact that some things are easy, some things are hard at school. What's your easiest class? Like, what don't you have to work too hard at? What class are you really struggling with? I'm not going to take away your iPad if you tell me which class you're struggling with. And talking to kids about what are you interested in right now. Interests change a lot. It's okay for interests to change. But those interests are often the path that lead us eventually to that success. So being really aware of interests. So asking questions about effort. And encouraging kids to pursue their interests. The gifted kids are notorious for their obsessions. I was obsessed with dinosaurs. I was obsessed with flags. Years would change and I would have a new obsession. I meet gifted, especially young gifted kids, and they have weird obsessions. They have interests, and pursuing those interests is, I think, the most valuable thing you can do, even if those interests don't go. I did not become a professional flagologist or anything, but my parents, they bought me flag books. I experienced that. I got to learn everything I wanted to learn about flags. I got really into music. I played in bands. My parents were very supportive about that interest, even though it didn't really turn into anything. Because all those interests still are useful for me as an adult. I draw on some of those things. So pursuing interests. I like this Venn diagram. I think the future success of our students is when they can find the thing that they're good at, and something that they really like to do. And finding that intersection, this is a great career one day. It's something you're good at and you like doing. A lot of times we don't find this until later in our life. I was in my mid-20s before I discovered teaching that was something that I liked to do. And then eventually, the trinity of circles here, we get the thing people will pay you to do. And if we can find this is so I'm very fortunate. I get to write lessons, which is my favorite part of teaching, is coming up with fun things for kids to learn about. I love doing it, and there are people who will pay me money to do it. So for me, I've found this really cool intersection of these things. But it took me a long time. There were years where it seemed what is going to happen with me? So keys, keeping in mind, very common for gifted kids to doubt if they are really gifted, if they're really smart, especially as they start to go hitting adolescence and school starts to get hard. High school, college is always often referred to. That's when the first time gifted kids have to work, is when they go to college, and it's all gifted kids everywhere. Being aware that it's common for gifted kids to doubt themselves. Success, it's not going to be a straight line. We should expect these wiggles, and the wiggles are good. This is how we find our passions, how we find the things that we really like to do and we're good at and we get paid for. Being aware that praising kids for being smart can be dangerous, because it can lead to thinking that easy things mean that I'm smart and hard things mean that I'm not smart. We see all kinds of stories of these people who we look up to, successful people, who their success was not a straight line, but there were these moments of, oh my gosh, the company's going to go out of business. Oh my gosh, she's going to end up homeless. And even Dorothy, her success in the end is not this straight line. The whole point of her story is that she had to learn to find that passion, even though it was something she had in the very beginning of the story. So our success, not a straight line. Two books that I mentioned that are related to this topic, So Good They Can't Ignore You, about pursuing interests and not just looking for passions, and Mindset, about giving praise that emphasizes hard work instead of just the results. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can email me, ian@birdseed.com. I have some links up there, but the slides will be up there also if you want to relive our memories together. I'll be sticking around if you want to ask any questions, but thank you very much for coming tonight and being here to listen. Thank you.
Thank much. That was great. I feel like I learned a ton. I hope you guys do too. Ian, as he said, is willing to stay around. If you guys have any questions about Sage, we have information out front if you're not already a member. And thank you once again for coming on a Friday night. We're happy you guys were all here. Thanks so much.